All right, we're in the first part of our study of the Gospels, the introduction of the King, or the first part after we've already done that prologue material. We're in the, as you notice the headings up here, Introduction of the King with paragraphs 3 through 27. And then the first point under that is the arrival of the King, 3 to 19. And this first paragraph, paragraph 3, is the genealogy of the King. And so the first question you had to answer was, what are the major differences between the genealogies recorded by Matthew and Luke? And I asked you to give 3. So let's begin. Give me one difference between those two genealogies. Stephen, what's one difference?
Matthew starts from Abraham and goes down to Jesus through Mary, and then Luke goes to Joseph.
Okay, the part of that I think you've got reversed around. But Matthew begins with Abraham, you said, and goes down through until you get to Jesus. And Luke, what's the contrast then with Luke?
It goes to Joseph.
Okay, well, no, the other, you've got Matthew starting with Abraham, so where does Luke start?
With Adam.
Yeah, he goes back to Adam. All right, so that's a difference. Okay, give me another one, Sean.
Matthew's verses for Jewish audience, while Luke is for Gentile audience.
Okay, how do you know that? Because I told you? Or could you tell that by looking at it?
Took a while.
It took a while. Okay, that's true. No, another difference. Nate. Okay, I said to give 3. That's only 2.
I thought that.
So you didn't have 3? Jonas, do you have one?
Well, Matthew starts at Jesus and goes backwards in the past, but Luke starts in the past, like he begins with Adam and then goes down to Jesus.
Right, so they both go different directions, don't they? Each of them goes a different direction, I should say. Right, okay, another difference. Any others? Raise your hand if you've got one we haven't mentioned. Jordan?
Luke goes to Joseph and Matthew goes through Mary.
You know, that's, 2 of you have said that. Let's look at that, okay? Look in your text first, because you guys have it reversed. It may look that way by looking at the text. Let's see. Look at Matthew first, Matthew 1. And you see that the last person mentioned there, I don't have my text open, but what I've got on my list here, the last person is Joseph. Is it not? Yes? Are you looking, or are you still trying to find it? Joseph, right?
Yes.
All right. So Matthew takes it through Joseph, and we'll explain the reason for that shortly. It says Joseph, the husband of Mary. So maybe, I don't know if some of you put Mary because she's mentioned there, but she's not the descendant or the ancestor of Jesus in this genealogy. All right, he's looking at Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born. So Jesus was born of Mary, but the genealogy is of Joseph. You got that? The genealogy in Matthew is the genealogy of Joseph. Now, let's look over at Luke. And I'm having trouble finding the genealogy. What chapter is it in?
Three.
3.
23 to 38.
Oh, there it is, okay. I wasn't going far enough. All right, so we see there, Jesus is said to be the son, in parentheses, as was supposed, of Joseph, the son of Heli. Now, in this case, it wouldn't be obvious to you in looking at it, but oftentimes in a genealogy, a husband's name was put in the place of his wife because women were not considered that important. In this case, and we know this from the rest of the genealogy, this is not a genealogy of Joseph, but actually it's a genealogy of Mary. Now, the reason for that is this, and I think we talked about this last year in Bible Doctrine, didn't we? About the curse of Jeconiah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? The curse of Jeconiah on Jeconiah. God, because Jeconiah was so evil, God cursed his descendants and said, none of your descendants are going to rule on the throne. Well, that would mean that because Jeconiah was in the Davidic line, that would mean that the royal line passing from King David would never be successful, but that's the line through which Messiah was to come. And if Jesus is the Messiah, then there's a problem. So what happened? God engineered it in such a way that Jesus was a descendant of David, but not in the royal line, in another line, another son. So if you look back up or you look down at the, when it gets to David in Luke's line, notice that if you looked at Matthew, you would see the son of David that is given there is Solomon, and that's the next king. So that's the royal line. But the son through whom Jesus found his physical ancestry was Nathan, who was not the royal line. He was not the next king. So Jesus fulfilled the prophecy that the Messiah would be a descendant of David. But he was not born in the royal part of the family because that part had a curse on it. And the person who was the recipient of that would have been Joseph. Joseph was in the royal line. So what happened is Joseph is able to transfer his right to rule to Jesus by adoption without actually being his physical father. And so that eliminated the curse on the royal line. Did you follow? Hopefully you remember that from last year. All right, so that's the reason why I have two genealogies here. But in Luke, he's also, as somebody pointed out, he's showing to the Gentiles that Jesus is human. He goes back to the very first human, and also that he is a descendant of David. Matthew's gospel points out that through adoption, he is the one who has the right to rule. So he is the rightful king. All right, any questions about that? Now, if you looked carefully through the genealogies, you would find some things that were similar. And I guess no one noticed that there's a different son of David as a difference between the two? Didn't look that carefully at it? So that would have been a difference we could have put as well. It goes through a different son of David. And you may think genealogy, how boring, but it really would be an interesting study to get into the different people that are given there and understand them. I think particularly in Matthew's account, where all the people are listed, when I began teaching through Matthew in a church I pastored once, and I think we spent, 4 or 5 weeks on the genealogy, just looking at some of the major people there and seeing some of the unusual people that are in the genealogy, people that you wouldn't expect in the genealogy of the king. But I'll just whet your appetite with that and allow you to maybe consider that and look at that. Okay, next question then that you had to look at was Oh, explain why there are differences. Okay, I guess we kind of already talked about that, didn't we? Okay, anything? I get on a roll sometimes and go from one question to the other without even thinking about it. All right, does anybody else have any other comments that you have written down or any questions about what you looked at for today? Or anything that I said? Or anything I didn't say? No questions? All right, here's what we're going to do next then. We're going to begin working on section 4. Now we're going to get into some more of the meat of the text here. You're going to be answering questions about what is happening in the text. So we can get started on that right now. Do section 4. If you notice, this is entitled The Angel's Announcement to Zechariah. Now, maybe you know who Zechariah was, maybe you don't. You'll find out. So begin working on the questions associated with section 4, or paragraph 4. Sometimes I might call it a section, sometimes paragraphs. I mean the same thing. All right, everybody see where we are? Okay. You can start working.
Mrs. Mayor wanted me to let you guys know there's no lab today. You'll have your class meeting. During